Among the followers released alongside Jax in Part 1 of the Darkin Saga, one in particular has stood out to me. Fireth, the Reaper of the Sands. A mysterious character who seems to have a lot more going on under the surface, but whom we are told precious little about. Fireth is a character surrounded by many implications, but little in the way of confirmed facts. Today, I want to dig a little deeper to see if we can't unearth some of the truths behind this mysterious, so-called Reaper, as well as her true identity. But before we delve too deep into that, we need to go back over some of the basics. So let's take a detour for a moment and talk about Jax. For those unaware, Jax is the last known living survivor of Acacia, a kingdom swallowed up long ago by the Void. Technically, there are supposed to be others, but they're kinda stuck in Zillion's time tower, so no one really knows about them. Anyways, Jax wasn't just any Acacian. He was a member of an elite band of warriors known as the Kohari, who were among the few daring enough to march into battle against the likes of the Ascended. Jax himself apparently even decapitated an Ascended warrior once upon a time, back when he was still using his full name of Jax. Unfortunately, for all their bravado, the Kohari simply weren't enough to shake the yoke of Shurima's oppression, and so Acacia turned to desperate measures in an attempt to rebel. They turned to the Void. This ended about as well as you'd expect, with the entire kingdom being utterly destroyed. However, even as Jax watched his homeland swallowed up around him, he found a light in the darkness. Literally. A lone brazier staff, which was basically just a lamp that burned with fire magic, remained a light even through the incomprehensible chaos of a void outbreak. Seeing this lone flame endure against the apocalypse made manifest, Jax took the brazier staff and fled, dubbing this tiny spark the last light of Acacia. Since then, Jax has had one mission: to rebuild the Kohari greater than ever, assembling an army of Runeterra's best warriors in the hopes of one day defeating the Void. A noble goal, to be sure, but well, he doesn't seem to be having much luck after over 1,000 years. I guess it's not so easy to find people willing to stand up against a reality-consuming eldritch horror, and those few he does find, he probably outlives. Whether this is because Jax is apparently a sand troll or there's some kind of magic keeping him alive is unclear. But either way, Jax has been wandering for ages to find allies who can join him in his seemingly impossible struggle. Apparently, he even tried to recruit Fiora at one point. And while we don't know for sure how their duel actually ended, it's probably safe to say that she declined his offer. That said, Jax has managed to gather a small crew of, well, maybe calling them warriors isn't the right word. The term used for them in-game is weapon masters, and their specialties lie in being able to fight with unconventional weapons. Among Jax's new Kohari, we have a combat cook, a Piltovan castaway, a wandering shepherd, and an Ionian hookmaster. Yeah, I'm not totally sure if metal pans and wrenches are going to be enough to drive back the Void, but I guess being adaptable in the midst of chaos isn't a bad trait for it. Goodness knows that Kaisa's followers knew how to improvise. But you might have noticed that there's someone I neglected to mention. Among the members of Jax's new Kohari, there is one that stands out as being even more peculiar than the rest. A masked girl who calls herself the Reaper of the Sands. Jax apparently tried to get her real name over a dozen times when they first met, but she refused to tell until Bresci, the combat cook, basically tricked her into revealing her identity. Not that Fireth's name really means a whole lot, since it's never referenced anywhere else in the lore. We don't even really know if Reaper of the Sands is a self-appointed title, or one she actually earned over time. That being said, one look at Fireth's card art reveals that, despite her seemingly Chinibio behavior, she is a force to be reckoned with. Unlike many of her fellow weapon masters, Fireth appears to be wielding an actual weapon in the form of a spear. Granted, it may actually just be a broken rake, but it was apparently deemed sharp and pointy enough that the Chinese version had to censor it. Of course, they also censored another key aspect that I've yet to address: the mysterious spectral wolf emerging from Fireth's pendant. This is never really explained. The most we get is the description for its equipment card, which reveals that even Fireth herself doesn't seem to know what its deal actually is. Perhaps the fact that Fireth's secondary region is the Shadow Isles might have something to do with it, but that frankly only raises even more questions. One thing is certain though: Fireth does seem to have some familiarity with death. To start with, Fireth is an ephemeral unit, meaning that she dies at the end of the turn she's summoned regardless of whether or not she takes any damage. Fireth's death quotes, however, never seem too torn about this. Her dying words make death seem more like a minor inconvenience than anything. In fact, death may simply be the catalyst that reveals Fireth's true nature. The spell Blades of the Fallen gives an ally a last breath effect. When they die, an Acathian Mirage is summoned in their place, and automatically gains any equipment that now dead ally had on them. While you can cast it on anyone, the spell is arguably best used on Fireth. She, like any weapon master, will improvise an equipment card the moment she's summoned, and automatically equip it. If you then cast Blades of the Fallen on her, when Fireth inevitably dies, the Acathian mage will appear in her place, with that equipment card in her hand. The card art for Blades of the Fallen even shows the Acathian Mirage wielding what appears to be a wooden rake, Fireth's weapon, albeit now unbroken. The card description simply reads, "Sometimes the best you can do for a fallen ally is to take up their weapon and continue the fight." But now that begs the question: who or what is the Acathian Mirage? Well, that too is a mystery. Her card description makes it rather vague if she is an actual Mirage, a member of a remote hidden village, or something else entirely. Regardless, this Mirage and Jax proceed to fight together in perfect harmony against whoever or whatever canonically killed Fireth, I guess? The Mirage's voice lines do make it clear that she does in fact have some affiliation toward Acathia, if the name and the fact that her outfit is near identical to Jax's own didn't make that obvious. Their interactions with one another are also curious to say the least. One exchange has the Mirage readily joining Jax's side, while another has her seemingly accusing him of running away from his homeland, something Jax doesn't even deny. Whatever the case may be, the most notable detail to me is that the Mirage actually speaks the ancient language of Acathia. Furthermore, Fireth is shown fighting in the background of her card art, meaning that the Mirage likely appeared moments before Fireth's demise. So, given all of this, let's try to put together a coherent timeline, shall we? Jax somehow meets and recruits Fireth, a peculiar child who simply calls herself the Reaper of the Sands. The girl boasts skill and strength enough to wind up as a member of Jax's new Kohari, even if she has to be tricked into revealing her name. At some point, Fireth and Jax get into a fight against what might be bandits or marauders, and a strange figure clad in Kohari armor appears to aid them. Not long after, Fireth presumably dies somehow, leading the Mirage to take up the Reaper's rake and continue the fight. The ultimate fate or identity of this Mirage warrior is unclear, but she seems to be a genuine Acathian warrior, capable of matching Jax's technique and fighting in perfect unison with him. It seems a safe enough bet that they probably win the fight, though whether or not that means that Fireth is truly dead remains unclear. So, at the end of the day, who truly is the Reaper of the Sands? Well, to be blunt, we simply don't have enough information to say right now. Ideally, Riot will release some more cards in the future to further fill in the obvious blanks in the story, but I realize that simply saying I don't know is hardly the most satisfying way to end a video. So, with that said, let's do a little theorizing, shall we? I believe it very much plausible that Fireth may in fact be a fellow descendant of Acathia, a member of a hidden tribe of survivors that even Jax is unaware of. In fact, taking it a step further, the card description for Upscaled Rake says that Fireth received her weapon from her mother. Could the Mirage then be the child's parent? Granted, that still doesn't explain or tell us much, but it would certainly contribute to why Fireth's attire is also vaguely similar to Kohari armor, albeit more crudely made and with a radically different color scheme. There is one other possibility to address, though, albeit it's my less preferred interpretation. The card description for Roar of Acathia mentions that Jax often dreams of fighting alongside his Kohari brethren again, sometimes winning, sometimes losing, but always fighting as one like they did in the old days. Could this in fact mean that Fireth's death, as well as the Acathian warrior who appears beside her, are all a dream? At the very least, Fireth herself seems to be real, considering that the other weapon masters know and acknowledge her, but the storyline around the cards that feature her may in fact just be figments of Jax's sleeping mind. In any case, these are just two possible interpretations. So, what do you all think? Who do you believe Fireth truly is? And would you like to see her story expanded upon in a future update? Leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I'll see you all next time.